Good afternoon and welcome to Rubbin Minds. My name is Isabella Adediji. Happy International Youth Day in arrears. Yesterday, the 12th of August, all over the world, the youth celebrated their own day. Now, while we don't have a universally agreed age for what constitutes a youth, you must agree that the youth do have a huge role to play in the development of their country. Joining me today to discuss the role of the youth, especially inclusion of young people in politics here in Nigeria, I have with me a governance advocate, Jude Osei. Welcome to Rubbin Minds.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you for honoring our invitation. And joining us via the Abuja studio, I have Gusi Toby Lord Williams, a development consultant. Welcome to Rubbin Minds.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being on the show. Now we'll go straight into the conversation, and I'll start with you, Jude. Do you consider yourself a youth? And if so, why? Like, what age does a youth consist of this day?
You know, this age disparity has always been a thing, you know, all over the world. I consider myself as a youth. You know, I am below age 40, for example. And a lot of people within that age demographic also consider themselves as a youth. However, in Nigeria, a couple of people who are like 50 plus 60 are struggling with us to say they are also youth. But then again, they are youth at heart, like they say. But however, it differs between the way you look at it.
Okay, so happy International Youth Day in arrears. And over to you, Gusi Toby. I'd also like to know, do you consider yourself a youth? And do you agree with you that some people who are in their 50s in Nigeria still consider themselves youth?
Okay,
Gusi
so
Toby,
just like
did you get
that? They consider themselves youth at heart. Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go on, I can hear
great.
you.
So like I was saying, below the age of 40, 45, indeed you can be considered a youth, or you are considered a youth. But anything above that age, just like Jude said, you are indeed a youth at heart and not youths like we should call it generally.
Okay. Youth at heart. Well, I know the age seems to differ. The United Nations actually puts it at 15 to 24 years old. Now, if we're looking at the youth as that young, you'll say that they are almost totally absent in Nigerian politics. So when we're looking at that young, or some will go all the way to 35, I find that a lot of these initiatives, they just peg it at 35, and some even go all the way to 40. Now, how would you evaluate or rate the inclusion of the youth in the governance of Nigeria?
So prior to today, a lot of people would say that the youth are the future of Nigeria, but you tend not to see them being featured within that demographics, right? Which is why Yaga Africa, for example, chose to lead the change by saying, okay, guys, you know what? The youth is no longer the future of they are no longer the future. However, they are the leaders of today. Let us all come together to advocate for increased youth participation in governance, which is why they introduced the Not Too Young to Run bill. And this spanned all through for like 10 years before the Senate were able to like endorse it, and then it became an act that the president has ratified. And so far, as we speak currently, from the age of 25 years, young people can actually run for office. And the age of 30, 35, just like that, all the way to presidency, you can now run for office legally within the framework of democratic process.
Okay. What about you, Gusi Toby? How would you rate the involvement of young people in governance, whether it's from actually holding political offices or putting themselves up for elections?
It has been great so far. I know that we can do better and we should definitely do better. However, for young people that are currently involved in politics, if you ask me, they have been doing absolutely amazing. For those that you can maybe find fault in one or two places, you can actually trace it back to the system actually being the problem, the system being the problem that is affecting them. But generally, young people that have been involved in politics are people that have been doing amazingly so far.
I know a lot of young people are watching and are asking the question, well, I want to get involved, but they tell me to wait for my turn. They tell me that the young people who are now the old people also had to wait. They had to sort of pay their dues, and then you're just expecting them to hand you the ticket and you're expecting them to vote for you. So to those young people, what message do you have for them? Like, does the not too young to run address that? Because yes, you're able to put yourself up, but then the party structure might not favor the young people.
Very correct. And this is why after the Not Too Young to Run bill was passed, we quickly went on to create what they call the National Electoral Scorecard. Usually it's to give emerging new political leaders, an avenue to understand the scope of electoral processes, right? And also to give them a scale as to how the party structures are created. However, we went further to have negotiations with political parties to say, guys, you know what? Now we have a legal framework. It's important that that reflects in your party constitution so that you infuse some form of affirmative actions for young people. So that even though you may not be ready to have increased youth participation in politics, can you have in your constitution an marked percentage for a group of young people so that they can come in, grow through the ranks, and become a new crop of leaders for generations to come?
Okay, I believe that still involves some kind of waiting, but the fact that they are even being considered and having that affirmative action, we're hoping to see more young people show up on the ballot sheet or be considered for political roles. Now, Gosi, I want to know, for young people who follow with due process, they join the political parties, but when they get there, they're told, for you to go far, you need X amount of money, because we know in these parts, campaigns are very expensive. For a lot of them, they are forced to turn to godfathers and godmothers. So how does a young person who hasn't had years of experience to maybe amass the wealth that they would need to actually be able to pay for a campaign?
All right, thank you, Isabel. There's this joke that people say about there is the not too young to run and then there's the not too rich to run as well, because it's more or less like there is so much money involved and people are, in quotes, scared to actually get involved, because when you think of the money you're hearing, 45 million naira for you to buy a ticket, and you're wondering, is my entire salary for how many years, if it's like an office worker, enough for me to even afford this, even when I have the vision for a new Nigeria? But the beautiful thing is we have platforms that are actually creating opportunities for young people. Just like Jude said now, the YIP Africa Youth in Politics is a platform that has created the electoral scorecard, and I believe he said something specifically about that just now. And then I love what Obi Ezekwesili as well is doing with the youths in politics. There's this political school, something she does about young people that are involved in politics, teaching them and helping them. And beyond that, I personally think that the godfatherism and godmotherism will not end anytime soon. And the earlier we start to shift our mindset on these people are going to fund campaigns, then it's up to us as young people. What exactly is your vision for getting there? It's not a lie that, yes, godfatherism would involve people sponsoring you and they would, in quotes, want to make you puppets. But at the end of the day, if our mindsets, if we start to channel ourselves and say, you know, I'm going there to do the right thing. Yes, I have a mentor, because in any system, in any structure, there are always mentors. The only problem is, once it comes to politics, people always feel like, oh, godfatherism is bad. No, it can also be a good thing. Yes, there's the negative aspect to it. Just like I said, people want to make you puppets. But at the end of the day, godfatherism and godmotherism can also be a good thing, as to having people that have been there, done that, and are willing to sponsor. There are people that don't have the vision, but you as a young person, you have the vision, you have the capacity, you have the willpower to actually lead and be in that position. and they are willing to support you financially to be in that position. And like I always say to young people, especially those that are, you know, ranting a lot on Twitter, what exactly do you bring to the table? Yes, you don't have the money, but do you have the popularity? Do you have the capacity? Because it's one thing to be excellent, it's another thing to have the capacity. Another thing is to build the popularity for yourself, build the momentum for yourself. People are willing to come and support you when you have the momentum. People will say, oh, I'm a part of a political party and people are not supporting me, people are not this. But
so
are you building
you're
the momentum
saying that if you
for
come
yourself?
with
Are you building
a plan, you're going to find mentors or godfathers and godmothers that will be able to support you because you've come with something to the table.
Absolutely.
Now, Jude, I want to know, when you do come with that plan and you have the godfather, godmother, or the mentor who says they're going to support you, and just like Gosi said, that a lot of times the fear is you're going to be turned into a puppet. So how do you go in with that mindset that, yes, I'm going to take the support, but when I get there, I'm going to do what's right, knowing that you might still require their support while you are there? So how do you wrestle with this dilemma?
Okay, so first off, just to contribute quickly to what Toby had said, is that, so when young people are running for office, so what we've done is to help them run in a pedestal that doesn't literally break the bank. So we've created different structures to ensure that they leverage to reduce their campaign expenses, right? So to answer your question, you cannot run in isolation. There are people who have been there, there are those who have interests, right? And usually it comes from different constituents. So if you're going to be running for office, you're running from somewhere. That place, there are people called the stakeholders, people who have built some form of track records. They either want you to continue or they want to end their own reign. Either way, for anyone who is interested in you, they come in like an investor, as a mentor. This is what we call godfatherism. Regardless of the interest, you as an individual, like I tell young people, understand that you represent a huge demographics of the future. You must be able to cooperate and compete. As much as possible, a lot of people's future rests on your shoulder. Do things that are in line and ethical, and do other things that make sure that your godfatherism are at peace with you.
Okay. Now, Gusi, when we look at some of the young people who do have the opportunity to run for office, and some of them end up either elected or appointed, we find that quite a number of them are related, maybe the daughters or the sons or the relatives of a current lawmakers or current political office makers. What do you make of that, this godfatherism or godmotherism that is being passed from one generation to another generation? And just like, say, in other countries where you have a particular family that's known for politics, what do you make of that here in Nigeria?
I was speaking to my friend before this session, and we were specifically talking about the democracy that Nigeria believes to be practicing, because it just seems as if we're practicing gerontocracy beyond anything that democracy has to offer. And like just like you said, most times you see systems where it's always like there's a handover. So it's almost as if there is a king and queen, and then it has to be passed down hereditary in the family. But the truth is, competence plays a huge role for young people that want to get involved. And in as much as we see these things happen, competence and capacity, like I will always say, is something that is very important. If you're competent and the people know that you're competent, so there is the competence, being competent part of it, and there's the awareness. People have to know that you're competent. I'm going to give a very practical example. I know Isabella, you probably have never met me, but I know you as a TV host. I know that you're competent. There is the visibility of you that I see out there. So what's the visibility of the people that are competent? Because we can keep saying, oh, they're giving it to their sister, they're giving it to their brother. What do we know that you do? What do you do? How do we know that you do it? I know Jude, my friend, as an amazing political analyst, as somebody, I see him him on TV, I see what he does online and even on the offline space. I know what he does. I see what he does, and I know that he's excellent and competent at it. So before we are castigating and pointing fingers, let's be sure that we ourselves are competent. So if you're competent, make sure that you are also putting out yourself in such a way that you are visible enough. People know what you are and what you're doing. Yes, it's currently happening, but how do we cope these things is by putting out yourself in such a way that they know that this person is competent enough to actually be in that position.
It's not enough to
than
just be competent, but you have to show up, and people need to know you for something. So they need to know that you're competent in this area, but you're also willing and available to take office. So let's say we follow all of this, but yet there are certain people that have to be compensated. So when you see, let's use the ministerial list, for example, you know that the president has to balance politics with competency. There's certain people that have to be on that list. And as a result, it then reduces the number of slots available for affirmative action, whether it's for women or for young people. So how do you still have a fighting chance? Because going by the looks of things, we're still struggling to see a large number of people, young people, on these lists, whether it's appointment at state level, local level, or at federal level, despite the fact that the youth constitutes a huge majority of the population. And that's what democracy is about, that representation of the people, for the people, by the people.
That's quite very interesting, Isabel. The truth is, we like it or not, there are stakeholders that governs nations, right? And everybody have different interests. And considering the fact that we have quota systems in Nigeria, and that also affects the way even the president or any other person in power consider distribution of appointments, positions, and as you name it. Regardless of how we see it, they are always ways they balance some of these things. And either way, you either support a certain candidate who is probably going to cut the quota, as it were, and then find ways to work together to achieve the same purpose or interest that you would naturally do if it were you, So these are the consensus that usually happen. Is why you see the president takes, for example, 60 days, and some may take less. Regardless, these are the compromises and consensus that must be made before a list like that is released. And whenever they don't find any, you see them release them in batches.
Okay. Gusi, Toby, I would like you to contribute to that. What do you make of the fact that a lot of what we're still seeing today in this new dispensation still doesn't have a lot of young people, considering the proportion of young people in the population?
I want to believe that the government still has a lot that they have not told us yet with regards to involving young people, because even when I checked the list myself, I was wondering, okay, maybe there's another list coming up and a lot more young people will be involved, because if you check the population, the young people have a higher volume when it comes to the number of people that you are going to govern. So if you're going to be working on policies that would affect these young people, they should be involved in the policy-making processes and other things involved. So yeah, I want to personally believe that there is something, another list that would involve more young people that we're yet to see.
Okay, while we're waiting for more lists and hoping and crossing our fingers and toes that more young people will be given the opportunity to play a part in governance, I think my final question to you will be, what next for young people in governance? What should we be doing, and what should the government be doing to encourage more young people to participate? Because there is an apathy, and we saw that during the polls. We saw a reduced number of young people coming out, say, in the state elections compared to the federal, the national election. So what should government be doing, and what should young people be doing?
So I always tell people, now, the federal government of Nigeria needs to be deliberate about, promoting increased youth participation in politics. I mean, it doesn't have to be presidency. There are different positions. Some form of entry level where you bring folks in so that we can all contribute to the development of Nigeria. Also, the federal government must encourage the private sector to stimulate, SMEs, for example. In this case, I'm talking about financial institutions currently consider young businesses as high-risk lenders. That has to change. The CBN must encourage banks to roll out what they call guaranteed loans to SMEs so that they can all get access to this financing, create jobs, employ more people so that we can reduce the poverty ratio per capita. Also, currently, the AFCFTA, which is Africa Continental Free Trade Area, currently has opportunities that we, young people, can leverage in Nigeria. We must increase our production capacity. And this cannot be done by individuals and young people. Government needs to come in to stimulate all that effort that we all can benefit from. With this, young people can see the effort government is putting, and we can all get together and build in the nation.
Thank you. So a lot of work still needs to be done by the government. Very quickly, Gusitobi, your final thoughts and words. What should young people be doing, and what should the government be doing?
I think specifically, Jude has said 100%, and I totally agree with him what the government should be doing. But for young people, what young people should be doing, please don't wait until the next 4 years for you to get involved. Go to your ward levels, go and be a part of a political party, join organizations like YIP Africa, Youth in Politics Africa. There's a Fixed Politics, there's YAGA. There are organizations like that can help you. Like he said earlier, like I said earlier as well, you cannot do this alone. You have to be part of a community. You have to be part of a team. And if your values align with these organizations, please join them. But don't wait until the next 4 years before you start building momentum. Start today.
Thank you very much, Gusitobi Lord Williams, a development consultant. And thank you, Jude Osei, a governance advocate, for your contributions on Rubbin Minds.